All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to, what day is today? Oh, it's Tuesday. It's Tuesday. Okay. So, good morning. Welcome to Tuesday. Sean is here on Tuesday. Good morning, Sean. Hamad is here. Good morning, Hamad. Basil's here. Good morning, Basil. Malika's here. Good morning, Malika. Simran is here. Good morning, Simran. And Reza's here. Good morning, Reza. Okay. So I think what I'll do today is try to take those off. Um, what I'll do is we'll do a little bit more work on religious oppression, so we'll spend some time on that, and then I'll talk a little bit about the presentation, and I will probably give you just a little bit of time to work on that today as well, okay? So a little bit of a few different things today. But without further ado, let's jump in to where we were yesterday. So yesterday we started talking about religious oppression, right? And so again, this is similar to other types of oppression where we have a dominant group, and the dominant group has social and institutional and historical power, and the dominant group is able to create a society that benefits them and disadvantages people in minoritized groups, right? And so again, depending on what country you go to, who is the dominant group and who is the minoritized group is going to be different, right? If we talk about Canada here, of course, Christians are the dominant group, right? Over 50% of Canadians kind of identify themselves as Christian. But of course, if we went to Saudi Arabia, we would find that Christians are not the dominant group, right? Muslims would be the dominant group in Saudi Arabia. So again, it depends where you go, right? But for here in Canada, most Canadians identify themselves as Christian, but as you can see, there's a pretty big chunk of Canadians that don't really strongly associate with any religion, right? And probably would describe themselves as not really religious at all, right? So we have a big kind of chunk of Christians, but we also have a big chunk of people who are not strongly religious one way or the other, right? And so I kind of broke it down for you here a little bit with Catholics and Protestants. Here in Canada, there's more Catholics than Protestants. And again, a lot of Canadians are atheists or agnostic or, not really strongly religious in any way. But again, we do have a small population, but a growing population of people who are Muslims, who are Sikhs, who are Hindus and Buddhists, because again, Canada is a country of immigrants, right? We have lots of new people coming here every year. Like I mentioned, the Canadian government is aiming for about 300,000 new immigrants every year. So that's a lot of people, right? That's a small city worth every year. And so that kind of composition of religions is going to change, right? As more people from other parts of the world come to Canada, and of course they're going to bring their faith with them, right? Their religions with them. Here in Canada, I would say that within the minoritized group, which is basically all non-Christians, the most vulnerable people I think are these groups, and probably because they are generally more identifiable to society, right? And so again, if I'm walking around out in society, there's nothing to suggest what my religion actually is, right? I'm not wearing any symbols of religion. Canadians aren't really, we're not seen as a very religious people. And so, when I'm walking around out in society, people don't really make any judgments about what religion I might belong to. And so, and being part of the dominant group in that way, I'm kind of normal, quote unquote, right? But again, people who do wear symbols of their faith, whether it be turban or whether it be hijab or something else, that kind of identifies them to society as belonging to their religion, right? And belonging to a minoritized group. And so I would suggest that they're a little more vulnerable because they're very easily identifiable, right? We said that this is an important question in Canada. First of all, because we're trying to build a multicultural society, right? But one that is that embraces diversity and allows people to kind of continue to be who they are, right? We're not trying to assimilate people here in Canada. We want, we ask people, if you come to Canada and you want to live here, try to, live a good life and contribute to the community and, follow the laws and stuff like that. But after that, we don't really ask more of them, right? We don't ask them to, good morning. We don't ask them to sort of become Canadian, in that we don't ask them to assimilate and become what we are. We kind of allow people to, to continue to be who they are. That's the idea anyway. And so, again, we have to learn how to make sure that everyone is accommodated and everyone is accepted within society, right? Regardless of the faith that they practice, right? And so I said that here in Canada, that ability to practice religion and sort of adhere to your beliefs is protected in a piece of the Constitution. It's connected in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And if you go to the real Charter of Rights and Freedoms here, you'll see it's under fundamental freedoms. And I showed you this yesterday, right? The section that says that everyone, so remember, I'll point out it says everyone. It doesn't say Canadian citizens, right? It says everyone. Everyone has the following fundamental freedoms, right? So freedom of conscience and religion, right? Freedom of thought and belief and opinion and expression, and freedom of the press and other media communication, freedom of assembly, freedom of association, right? So people can believe what they want to believe. They can get together and practice their faith and worship whatever they're worshiping. They can get together, they can form organizations that are religious in nature, and they can spread their views to the public, right? All of those things are protected in the Charter, right? And so people, those are people's rights, right? Those are the things that they are allowed to do. We said, though, that people's rights, and not just people's rights in the Charter, are subject to a couple of limits, right? And so one of them is reasonable limits, right? And so, first of all, you cannot practice your rights in such a way that sort of infringes on other people's, okay? So my freedom of speech cannot take away your freedom of speech, right? That's not a good example, but that's not allowed, right? The other thing is that the government may limit people's rights, but it has to be reasonable. It has to be a reasonable limit, right? And so, one of the limits on free speech has to do with hate speech, right? You can say whatever you want in Canada, right? Justin Trudeau's a bozo, right? I can say that, right? And I can say it online, but I can't use my freedom of speech to spread hatred against particular groups, right? That's a limit on my free speech. So free speech is not unlimited, right? It doesn't mean you can just say whatever you want. There are limits around it, right? And of course, this is an aside, but also keep in mind that it doesn't protect you from the consequences of saying what you want, right? So you can use your freedom of speech to say things, but it might make you very unpopular, right? People might not want to talk to you based on what you say, and that's allowed, right? So there's some limits on people's rights, but there's also this notwithstanding clause. And so again, I pointed it out. It's not going to be so important for us here. The thing that I was going to do that someone else is going to present on in class has more to do with notwithstanding clause. So, but keep in mind, it's a way for governments to pass a law that does violate the Charter, right? But it allows them to do it. It's not a great addition to the Charter, right? Because again, it's a back door, right? It's a way around people's charter rights. And so again, I pointed out that The province of Quebec has used the notwithstanding clause quite a bit. Um,
Like, do you see it's like a limit?
what's that?
Like, because they say it's freedom for speaking, but and then they limit a lot of things when people wanna speak something.
Sorry, Jesse, say that one more time.
It's like they have no like freedom for speaking. Like yeah,
Yeah.
when you wanna you can talk everything, but like and then they limit a lot of things when we talk. Because
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I'm understanding your point, but you can, yeah. So you can say you are allowed to say what you want within certain limits, right?
it still have limit. It's not freedom. It's not a free like you cannot speak freely. You
what?
cannot harass someone.
Well, the idea here is this. The idea here is this. The idea here is that, again, it's a situation where we need to accommodate multiple rights at the same time, right? And so, let's say, not you, let's say a person over here, wants to, maybe they have very strong anti-Semitic beliefs, right? They're very strongly prejudiced against Jewish people, and they want to spread those beliefs to the world, right? But Jewish people also have a right not to be discriminated against, right? They have a right not to be, hated by society and subjected to prejudice and discrimination and racism or religious oppression, right? So those things show up in the charter because, again, they protect someone else's rights, right? So yes, you can say whatever you want, but the limit is there to protect other people and allow them to exercise their rights as well, right? So that's kind of how it works, and that's how the entire charter works, right? Is that you need to balance people's, not the entire charter, just parts of it, but you need to balance people's rights, right? So I can't use my rights in such a way to take away yours, right? That's not how it works. But again, sometimes it gets complicated, right? Sometimes it gets complicated. And so I'm just going to jump ahead here. This is an instance where it did get complicated, right? And so we saw, I explained to you yesterday that this happened a few years ago. Trinity Western University in British Columbia wanted to open a law school, right? And the law school was checked out by the Law Association of Canada, and that's the group that kind of oversees lawyers and the law profession and sort of accredits them. The Law Association of Canada looked at Trinity Western's law school and said, yeah, it's good, right? You've got all the right courses, you've got professors who are qualified, and you've got a program that, will instruct people how to be good lawyers, right? So you have a good program. But we don't agree with your community covenant, right? Because your community covenant, you make everyone sign it, and it says that, among other things, it says that you cannot have, you cannot have any sexual intercourse that violates the sanctity of marriage between a man and a woman. And the Law Society says, well, you're discriminating there against, people who are not Christian, because some people think it's okay to have sex outside of marriage, right? And some people are gay or lesbian, and so they may have, good morning, they may have sex with someone of the same gender, or those people might actually be married to each other. And of course, they might want to have sex with their husband or their wife, right? And so the Law Society said, your community covenant discriminates against people, of different sexualities, or even just people who are not, who believe that sex before marriage is okay, right? You're discriminating there. And the charter says you're not allowed to. So the Law Society says, we're not accrediting your school until you change your community covenant. Good so far? Good? Trinity Western said, actually, Law Society, you can't do that. Now you're discriminating against us based on our religious beliefs. You already said our law school was good. Now you're telling us that you won't give us the accreditation. I can't say that word. You will not accredit our law school because of our religious beliefs. Right? So here we have kind of two groups' rights coming into conflict. The right of Trinity Western Christians to practice their religion, and the rights of people who are gay or lesbian or something else, or simply believe that they can have sex outside of marriage. Now those people are being discriminated against because they won't be able to come to Trinity Western's law school, right? So we have rights coming into conflict, right? So we watched, pardon me, we watched a video yesterday, and I have two videos that go kind of back to back, and they talk about both sides of this issue, the Trinity Western side, or the sort of Christian side, and then the sort of non-Christian side. And would it be okay, it was a short video, but would it be okay if we just watched that first video again? Because I feel like yesterday some people were a little confused about what was being said, okay? So would that be okay? Can we just watch it one more time? Okay. So for online people, you'll see that this is in Microsoft Teams already because it's the same video from yesterday. Let's just watch it again and see if we can figure out. Don't worry about the questions, the 3 questions here. What I want you to pay attention to is how are they reacting to this decision? Because again, we see that the Supreme Court, this case goes all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court says, no, Trinity Western, you are discriminating. Okay? So the Supreme Court sided with the Law Society of Canada. Okay? So the Christians here and Trinity Western University are kind of reacting to the decision that they lost, right? They lost their court case. Good? Okay. I know this is a complicated situation. Okay. So online people, go watch this video. It's in Microsoft Teams from yesterday. We'll be back in just a few minutes and we'll talk about this. Okay. All right. I'm gonna mute that. Okay, so what are we hearing from these two commenters here? So again, they're commenting on the Supreme Court's decision to side with the law societies and and allow those law societies not to recognize the graduates of Trinity Western's program, right? And so Supreme Court has decided in favor of those societies. What are these people saying? What kind of thoughts are they expressing? Oh, there you are. Well, they're not feeling very positive for sure. Like what kind of things did you hear? Yeah. Yeah, certainly, the second guy we talked to here, Earl Phillips, he doesn't want to say anything that's going to hurt his university, right? So he could see he was being very careful and, oh, we're going to have to look at it and think about it and blah, blah, blah. So he was very kind of not committal, right? He was very careful. The first guy was a little more opinionated, right? Because he's an academic, he can just say whatever he wants, and he's not the head of a university. The head of the university has to be more careful. But what other things did they say? I think, yeah, they were talking about the charter being turned on its head. They were talking about something about the way people are able to manifest their beliefs, right, or perform their beliefs in the public space, right? So there's belief, right? There's what you believe religiously up here, but then there's the kind of things that you do in society that are connected to that belief, right? The things that you do or the things that you don't do, right? So they were talking a little more about, not so much about belief, but about practice, right? About how people kind of practice their faith. Did you hear anything else that kind of stood out to you? They're definitely not happy. they're kind of struggling with this decision. They Why do they want to have a law school? Well, I assume because there is a demand for law schools and they think that they can offer a good law program and make some cash, right? I mean, that's why, why do we have a high school program at Columbia College, right? Well, we think that there is a demand for it, right? We think that students want to come to Canada and study with us. We think that it might be nice to finish up your secondary here and be able to transition to university courses immediately in the same institution. We think we can do a good job offering a secondary program here. We think that students might want to come here because it's a beautiful city and it's in Canada and they can get a different experience, and yeah, there's a little bit of money to be made too, but it's the same reason that any school offers any program, because they think that that's what students want. There's a demand for it, and they think that they can provide that. Good morning. Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts or things that you heard about, or things that you heard in the context of this discussion? Sorry, I'm just trying to do two things at once here. That's why I got distracted. Okay, so let's listen to the other side. Okay, so in Microsoft Teams, online people, I have put a link to the second video that we'll watch. So I'll invite you to watch that second video. And again, your job here is to pay attention to what people are saying, right? What is their argument? How do they feel about this issue of Trinity Western's community covenant versus the Law Association's accrediting law graduates, okay? Cool? Okay, let's do it. Online people, we'll see you in just a couple of minutes. I think maybe what I'll do is I'll just go right to my next question, which was just what, oh, not that one. There we go. Simply, what do you think about this? Who's who's right and who's wrong? Or, if nobody's wrong, whose rights need to be protected here? The queer people? Why?
Because we're in Canada.
Because what?
We're in Canada.
We're in Canada, and what does that mean?
There is freedom. Like when there's freedom, freedom is mostly when you can do things you want. So being gay is accepted. So like they discriminate their community.
Yeah.
LGBTQ. Yeah, they discriminate them. Like they can't go to law school because they're gay. Like, all that.
Yeah, so that community covenant or that contract, as they describe it, yeah, it does discriminate against the LGBTQ community, right? And here in Canada, yeah, you can't do that, right? We have protections in place so that people aren't discriminated against based on their sexuality. Jesse? Or did you not? What's up?
Kind of complicated.
Sure. That's why it went to the Supreme Court because it's complicated.
I can understand in the student side
Yeah?
because Canada is multicultural, so they cannot discriminate LGBT people. Yes.
Yeah, and it's true, right? You can't, and that's what I missed her name, the woman with the glasses. That's kind of what she was saying, right? Is that the Supreme Court has drawn a line here in other decisions that they've made where belief and practice are it's kind of separate, right? And she says you can believe what you want, right? You can think that homosexuality is unnatural or a sin or horrible, and you can say that in public if you want, and you can write about it, but you can't discriminate against people, right? So you can have your beliefs, but you don't get to discriminate on that basis, right? And so, what else? Yoya or Elizabeth or Kang, what do you think? What happens here's how, so when you become a student or a staff member at Trinity Western, you have to sign that community covenant, right? Yeah, so you have to say that you won't do a bunch of things, there's no drinking on campus, and no no vandalism, and be nice to people and all that stuff. But then there's other things about behavior that are kind of connected to the Christian religion, right? About no sexual intimacy outside of marriage, and no sexual intimacy outside a marriage between a man and a woman, right? And so it kind of discriminates against single people who just might want to go to college and hook up with people, right? And it also discriminates against people who are, again, LGBTQ, right? Who are gay or lesbian. So yeah, you have to, when you become a student or a staff member, you're supposed to sign this contract, and then you would go through your law degree, right? You would finish your law degree, and then you'd have to write the bar exam, right? Which is the lawyer's exam. And if you pass that, then you are officially a lawyer. But I was gonna say, but that's what the law societies of BC and Ontario were saying, is that we're not going to allow your students to write the bar exam because we feel that you are training them in a way that supports discrimination. You're discriminating against against LGBTQ people, and you're kind of violating the charter. And so we don't want to encourage that as a law society. So they're saying we're not going to allow your students to become lawyers in our province. And Trinity Western was saying, no, you have to. You're discriminating against us. Sorry, did that help a little bit? Or did I say again? The covenant? Who created the contract? Yeah, so like Earl Phillips mentioned, it's been part of Trinity Western, I think, since the beginning, since Trinity Western opened in the 1960s. He said it's been kind of modified throughout the years. It's probably their administration, so they're like the heads of the school that write that contract, and it's probably approved by a board. They probably have a board of directors or a board of governors that approves it as well. So it's kind of the heads of the school that write this thing. What do you think? It's tricky, right? Because again, the Christians at Trinity Western have a right to their beliefs and to practice their religion, but also LGBTQ people have a right not to be discriminated against, right? So who do you choose, right? When people's rights are kind of bumping into each other, right? It's complicated, right? What do you think? Just a quick show of hands, who thinks that the Supreme Court made the right decision and that the Law Society was doing the right thing? Nobody. Who thinks that Trinity Western is in the right, and that they're being discriminated against by the Law Association? Still no hands. Nobody wants to go on record. You know, when you all become Supreme Court justices in the future, you will have to vote, right? The Supreme Court, they said it was a 7-2 decision. So there's 9 Supreme Court justices, and they have to vote, right? So when you all become Supreme Court justices in Canada, you will have to decide. Huh? I know, but you can practice right now. This is kind of where the issue turns. The issue kind of turns on 2 things, right? Number one, there's a question of who is more deserving of protection, right? And so are Christians more deserving of protection, or are LGBTQ people, right? Well, we know that Christians are the dominant group in Canada, right? They are not really under threat, right? They're not a minoritized group. They don't face, good morning, they don't face religious oppression, right? They're in control, right? They have power in society. LGBTQ people, not so much, right? We know that they're in the minoritized group. Straight people are the dominant group, right? So we know there's a difference there. Also, when we talk about Trinity Western, people are allowed to, okay, let me just see here if I can find it. Okay, I'm on 23. There we go. So, the Charter says this, that people have freedom of conscience and religion and thought and belief and expression, assembly, all of that stuff. Now, are any of those things being threatened? Are the Christians being threatened with any of that? Are Christian people still allowed to believe in their religion and practice their faith? And if that community covenant, if that contract is kind of how to be a good Christian at university, if that's what that is, are Christians still free to follow that contract? If I'm a Christian at Trinity Western and I'm not married, am I free to not have sex with anyone until I'm married? Am I still allowed to do that? No? I must have sex with someone.
But how do they know?
I'm going to enroll at Trinity Western, right? No.
How do they know?
How do they? Well, as long as nobody tells on you, they don't know, right? But Yeah, this is funny, I know, but am I still free to do that? Am I still free not to have sex with anyone? Yeah, right? I don't have I don't have to have sex with anyone at college. So so the Christians can still practice their beliefs, right? They're not being their ability to believe in their religion and to practice their beliefs is not under threat here, right? But the issue is that can you make other people do it, right? Can you discriminate against them unless they follow your rules, right? That's kind of what's happening here. You can believe what you want, right? You can believe in sort of evangelical Christianity. You can practice your beliefs, right? You can follow the rules of your religion, the way you want, but you can't make other people do it, right? You can't discriminate against them, right? If they want to do it, then they can, right? There's nobody stopping them from going to Trinity Western University, living a Christian lifestyle, following all the Christian rules. Nobody is stopping them from doing that. But you can't make other people do it, right? And you can't make other people do it, on the punishment of kicking them out, right? You can't do that. Especially if the reason you're doing it is because they are, because they're gay or lesbian, right? Yeah, if they, get drunk and burn down one of the buildings on campus, yeah, you should kick them out, right? But you can't kick them out because of who they are, right? And that's why the Supreme Court kind of made the decision that it did, right? Some groups are more vulnerable, right? Some groups need more protection, and some groups need less, right? Christians don't need a lot of protection in Canada because they're the dominant group, right? LGBTQ people, they do need more protection, right? They're a minoritized group. They're a smaller group, and they've been subjected to prejudice and discrimination in the past, right? So they need a little more protection. Plus, nobody is stopping these Christians from practicing their faith, right? They're still allowed to do everything that Christians could do before. They just can't make other people do it, and that's why the Supreme Court kind of made the decision the way they did. And again, you don't have to, you don't have to agree with that, right? You can still feel that, that was the wrong decision. But that's why the Supreme Court decided the way that they did, right? So again, these situations where rights come into conflict. Sorry, Jesse, I'm going to quote you again, but they're complicated, right? They're difficult to sort out, and somebody kind of I don't know what it's called. It's not Zoom bombing if you're not on Zoom, so I guess it's YouTube bombing. But somebody showed up here and they made some comments here, and I'll put them on the screen. So I don't know who this is. Who defines what's reasonable, right? Well, ultimately the Supreme Court does, right? And again, it's tricky, right? Because reasonable is kind of it's not a hard concept, right? And so, but lots of things kind of fall under the idea of what would a reasonable person do, right? What would a reasonable person say? Not an extreme person, not a crazy person, just a reasonable, normal human being, right? What would they decide? And again, sometimes that's difficult to kind of quantify. But who defines what's reasonable? Well, ultimately it's the Supreme Court, right? And the Supreme Court decided in this case. This person also said that I said you can't infringe on the rights of others, and then explained why it's okay to infringe on the right of free speech. Well, again, there are limits, right? And so it depends on who is more deserving of protection, right? And who can, are people's rights taken away, right? If I have anti-Semitic beliefs, right? If I have a strong prejudice against Jewish people, and I don't get to, stand on the roof with a megaphone and tell society, is that a significant kind of limit on my ability to say what I want? I don't know, right? You can still say anything else you want, you just can't say those kinds of things, right? And again, is it more beneficial to have a vulnerable group in society protected, right? A group of people who have been subjected to prejudice and racism for literally centuries, right? And so we're going to try and protect them from people saying all kinds of awful things about them in public. You can still think those things, by the way, if you want to be anti-Semitic, if you want to have strong anti-Jewish prejudices, you are allowed to have them. But you can't spread it as hate speech, right? So again, we have a little bit of a limit on, little areas of speech so that vulnerable people are protected, right? So we're giving up a little bit of our rights so that a more vulnerable group can have protection, right? That's how that's working. Because again, freedom is important, right? But total freedom is not freedom, right? A society with no rules is not like. Do you want to live in a society with no rules? I don't. Right? I've seen movies like that, right? They're usually post-apocalyptic, right? There's been a nuclear war and everyone's surviving for themselves. A world with no rules is a difficult world to live in, right? And so, some rules are okay. And this one is, again, trying to protect minoritized groups, right? Trying to protect people who are vulnerable. And again, you can disagree with me here if you want, but I think that's okay, right? I think it's okay to protect people who are vulnerable. And if you have to give up, just a little bit of your right to say awful things about them, I think that's okay, right? Again, you can disagree with me, but I think that's okay. Also, this person said that I hope none of you are paying for this pseudo-intellect. Well, they are paying for it, thank you very much. And I don't think I'm a pseudo-intellect. I think I'm at least a half-intellect. Anyway, it's not very nice. Goodbye. So Reza says a lot of rules, hang on. A lot of rules, including rules in Western University, are against democracy. Well, I don't know specifically where that comment would come from, Reza, but it's true, right? Is that, universities aren't necessarily democracies, right? And, democracy is the governmental system that we have, but a lot of entities in society are not democratic, right? Anyone here have a job? I don't think your study permits don't allow you to work, right? No. Lots of university students at the college here do have jobs, right? Because their study permit will allow it. But I'm fairly certain that all of the companies they work for are not democracies, right? If you work at Subway, is it a democracy? No, you do what the boss tells you, right? Yeah, so it's true there are, we live in a democracy, but not every entity within that society is democratic. However, Reza, it might actually, it might interest you to know that Columbia College actually is a democracy. And so, because we are a charitable society, we actually don't have an owner. So nobody owns all of this. Basically, as employees like me, we are members of the charitable society, and we try to make decisions for, the benefit of the college as a whole. And so, and how we do that is through democracy. We vote on things. And in fact, we just had a meeting last Thursday in which we did just that. We made decisions and we voted on things. And so I kind of see where you're coming from there, Reza, and you might be correct. Not everything in a democracy is democratic, but strangely enough, Columbia College is a democracy. But we are also very weird in that way. Most schools aren't democratic, so we're kind of were a very interesting case. But anyway, I can tell you're all very interested in it. So, let's have a break, okay? Break time? Okay. Let's take a break, come back, I'll talk a little bit about the project, and then I'll give you some time to work, okay? So, see you in 10 minutes. Okay, and we're back. So I'd like to give you a little bit of time here to work on your presentations for the last week of class. And so I just wanted to draw your attention to something I've added to Microsoft Teams and I've created an assignment for, okay? So let me just put it up on the screen here. Both these documents are in Microsoft Teams under Files. Microsoft Teams under Files. Let me just make it a little bit bigger there. There we go. Okay, so most of this you've seen before in the main assignment sheet. I just want to draw your attention to a couple things, right? So, of course, what you're going to do here in social justice, in the presentation, is look into a specific social justice issue. You'll try to connect it to some of the things that we've talked about here in class, whether it's concepts or whether it's actual examples of oppression. And then you'll explain to us what is being done to challenge this injustice or to fix this inequality or whatever it is, okay? And so, again, you've seen all of this, you've seen most of this before. What I want you to do, of course, is, this is kind of what I'm looking for you to do. I'm looking for you to be able to find good quality information, take it, turn it into your own words, put it into your own kind of argument, and put that across to us, okay? That's really what I'm looking for you to do. And so, to that end, I've created this marking guide here for you to look at. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. There we go. Make it a little bit bigger. Oh, too big. Okay. Nope, still too big. Okay. So I'm going to be looking for basically 4 things, right? So the first one has to do with your research, right? Have you done your research? Do you have a good quantity of information in order to explain this social justice issue? Have you pulled from good sources? Do you have your sources listed at the end of your presentation? Because you should. In the last slide, you should have your sources listed for us, or the last maybe couple of slides. Your argument or critical thinking, I would like you to kind of present this in the form of an argument, right? So I'd like your presentation to have a main point, right? A main thing that you want us to understand or to learn from this, and then support it with the information that you research, right? And your main point or the conclusion of your argument doesn't have to be overly complicated, right? It can be just as simple as, the gender pay gap is a serious issue in society, as I've shown you, and but we can fix it by doing this, right? That it can be very simple. I'm really just looking for you to kind of do the steps, right? Create some sort of an argument that works, right? It doesn't have to be super complicated. It doesn't have to be, solving world hunger or whatever it is. It doesn't have to be, super complicated or super insightful. I just want to see you kind of do the steps, okay? Course connections. Can you connect what you're researching and what you're telling us to the course? And so kind of what I'm looking for here is, have you been paying attention for the last 3 months, right? Have you learned anything from this course, and can I see what you've learned by how you're talking about this issue, okay? And then finally, the presentation part. So is your PowerPoint or Keynote or whatever it is it nice and polished, right? Are there no spelling mistakes? Is it nicely formatted? Does it look good, right? And again, you can keep it simple here. There's lots of templates in PowerPoint or Keynote. You can just use one of those, it's fine. But, does your presentation look good, right? And do you present it well, right? Are you up there and, confident and teaching us about things, right? So that's kind of what I'm going to be looking for. Do you have good information, and have you cited it properly? Are you presenting this in the form of an argument? Are you showing me that you have been paying attention and that you understand social justice? And have you been able to put it together in a well formatted kind of professional presentation? That's what I'm looking for. Okay. So I'll be looking at this when I'm grading you. So I just wanted to supply it to you. Again, there's this little page in there too, but there's not too much. There's not too much that you haven't seen in this document already. Okay. Do you have any questions for me at the moment? No questions, no questions, no questions? Okay. Well, then I will turn you loose. I'll let you get to work. And yeah, if you have any questions while you're working, you can certainly ask me, okay? So, actually, I just want to check one thing. Yes. So, Reza, I think I answered. You sent me a question in Microsoft Teams. I hope I answered that question for you just now. If I didn't, just let me know in Teams, and I'll try to. I'll try to. I'll try to provide a better answer for you. Also, before I set you to work, did we talk about maybe a quiz on Friday? Did we talk about that? Yeah? Okay. We should do one. Okay? We should do one because we still got two more. Let me make a proposal. We're starting to get a little tight for time here, right? We've got a presentation coming up, and we've still got 2 quizzes to do, and that's a lot. That's a lot for a few weeks. What do you think we should do? What should we do about that last quiz? You know what? I'm going to ask you that tomorrow. I'm going to let you get to work now. You can think about it. Tomorrow we'll figure out what to do because I think we've got 1 quiz too many, but we have to deal with it, okay? So we'll deal with that tomorrow, but we will do a quiz on Friday. Okay? Okay. So I'll let you guys get to work. We'll talk about that tomorrow. And again, if you have questions, you can ask me. And Reza, I'm going to respond to you right now. Okay? Okay, people, so that's about all the time we have for today. So I'll let you pack it up. I'll see you tomorrow. We have a little more religious oppression to deal with, and then we'll move on to classism. So yeah, that's it. Pack it up, and I'll see you. I'll see you tomorrow. Okay.